There's no doubt the Bible is at the top of anybody's list of all-time bestsellers. Now some of the biblical tales have taken on a more modern twist. Romance writer Joan Wolf, who lives here in Connecticut, has fictionalized the stories of the Bible's most compelling women in her books, Daughter of Jerusalem and A Reluctant Queen. And Joan Wolf is here to tell us more about it. It's great to have you.
Well, great to be here.
So what inspired you to write about these women in the Bible?
Well, it was kind of a weird journey. I had been writing romances, and I finished the last of the romances on my contract, and my agent went out to look around to see, what was what, and all the editors wanted was books with vampires or werewolves, or a lot of sex.
Not your genre.
Not my genre. So I kind of had to think of what else I wanted to do. And I don't know, being a Catholic and going to church every Sunday and listening to the gospel, I thought, there are a lot of great stories in the Bible. And that's kind of what got me started.
How did you glean so much from so little?
Well, you have to obviously make up the story. And it's just, I think, setting it in the time that it was actually in, putting it in its proper historical perspective, just gives you so much of an environment to work with, for them to interact with, creating other people for them to interact with. You create, it's a novel. It's not a true story.
It truly is a novel. But you can get wrapped up into it thinking that it is a true story just because it's based on these women. And Daughter of Jerusalem is the story of Mary Magdalene, thought by many as probably the second most important woman in the New Testament after Mary, mother of Jesus.
Yeah.
That must have been challenging, thinking about having her as the focus of a book.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Mary Magdalene is that nobody knows anything about her. She's only mentioned 3 or 4 times in the Bible. For a long time, she was confused with the woman, with the adulteress who washes Jesus' feet with her hair. As theologians now definitely do not think that was Mary Magdalene.
That's true. They did say that.
And so for a long time, people thought she was a prostitute. And there's absolutely nothing in the Bible to say that she was a prostitute. And it seemed to me, when I was thinking about it, she in John was the first person he appeared to after he rose from the dead. And what an important person she must have been to him in his life for that to have happened. So I just thought that this is a woman whose life was really intertwined with Jesus, and she was a woman. And it came to me that, women are were very important to Jesus, and they are very unimportant when you really read any kinds of discourses on the Bible, or they just really don't emphasize or even acknowledge, I think, the importance of women in Jesus' life.
Now, the story about the Daughter of Jerusalem, about Mary Magdalene, you start out describing her life and her loves, and the first one she falls in love with, she can't have.
Yeah. I love to do young love stories. I do. I just really love to do stories about young love. And it was very touching. And I wanted people to see how really hard it was for women at that particular time. They were really virtually nothing. They had no rights at all. So she was packed off and married to some old guy because the boy she loved, Daniel's father, she wasn't good enough for him.
Exactly. Now the second book, A Reluctant Queen, is about Queen Esther, a Jewish queen of a Persian king.
That is such a neat story.
That really is.
How could you not have fun with a story where this sheltered little Jewish girl is all of a sudden whipped away into the harem of the great king of Persia, she has just been a very sheltered, modest, and it's a contest to see who's going to get to marry the king, and she doesn't think she has a chance, and then he picks her, and it could be I made it a great love story.
Yes, you did. It was great. And are you really well versed on the Bible yourself?
Well, I became well versed on the Bible as I was reading for this. I mean, we all of us, I have a much better knowledge of the New Testament than I do of the Old Testament. So, but not everybody, but I knew the story of Esther. I always thought it was such a great story.
It is a great story.
So,
Well, we do want to remind everybody this is fiction.
well, Esther, the story of Esther is fiction in the Bible. I mean, there's no proof in history that any of that ever happened. But
you've actually even embellished it even more
Right,
so.
right.
So just to remind
again,
everybody.
setting it in that particular period, which is right after the Battle of Marathon, when the Persians was so, hepped up about trying to beat the Greeks, and there was a lot of history background there, and I like history.
Well, both books really move beautifully. And the
Thank
books
you.
again are Daughter of Jerusalem and A Reluctant Queen. And where can you get the books?
Well, you can get them on Amazon. I don't know how many of the bookstores still have them, but you can get them on, or any of the online bookstores will have them. Yeah.
Well, you're a prolific writer, so there are a lot more books written by you as well that
There
they
are.
can check out. All right, thanks again for being here, Joan.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Don't go away, there's more Connecticut Style right after this.